I've been getting a lot of questions from people directly, but also within my AI builders group as well about how to build an app. And so today I'm going to cover a couple of things that you should not only know as like more of a fundamental side of things, but give you a little bit of insight of how different platforms work and how mobile development works. A little bit of background about myself. I build mobile apps for not only myself for fun, but also for creators, influencers, and I guess you could call me more of like a freelancer. I heavily use AI coding in my workflow, and so I have a bit of experience to share, and that is my goal. Just to show you, this is how much my recent app made with an influencer. Let me go here, $65,000. If you've seen my posts, you see my other apps that I'm working on as well. But yeah, let's jump right in. So one of the questions that I get is, well, should I use Replit or should I use Lovable? If I go to Lovable right now, I want you to kind of think about something. Well, this seems pretty new. Well, one of the main issues with Lovable and those type of platforms is even go to Replit just to, I don't need to pull it up, but yeah, Lovable and Replit, those are specific LLMs for building apps. Now, there's a difference. They don't build directly to mobile apps. And that is important to know because if you take, for example, you might see things like Cursor or let me find a Claude Code T. Now, tools like Lovable, Replit, anything that you build apps on a website or on the phone, they go into a realm of AI coding builders. Now, the thing is, with AI web-based builders, right, the way they work is just like how you were to, if you don't know, how Cursor or Claude works, right? They're running off of your machine. The reason why they're so intuitive is because somebody can just go in and be like, build me an app, right? And it essentially is sending your response to just another computer, just like the one you're either watching this video on if you're using a laptop or your phone. You're not building on your phone. But yeah, it is essentially just spinning up an instance is what people call it of a computer to get that to run. And that is what spins up your workflow. And what it's doing on these builders, Lovable, Replit, is they're like, all right, let's use model Sonnet 2.5. And Sonnet 2.5 is just a LLM model. Just like if I were to pull up Cursor here, let me pull up a random. And if I were to just, pick a model, switch this off of auto, um, you have all of these models here, and pretty much you can just click one, it switches it, and it's using your code pretty much to, ask questions and make edits. Now, it's doing all of that for you. When you're using a web-based builder, the reason why everything costs so much is because it requires more resources on the server side. Now, the reason why it's so much cheaper whenever you just directly use a tool like a Cursor or let's go on this middle tier right here. So this is going to be expensive, mid expense, and then let's go a little bit lower, less expensive. Now, I would say the best models out right now, at the date and time of this video, September 30th, 2025, is currently Opus 4.1, Sonnet 4.5, I believe, and GPT-5 Codex. And the reason why I say that is you don't want to use a dumb model, even if it's like slightly dumber, right? You could get things done faster. These websites like Lovable, Replit, they typically use a cheaper model to save on compute costs. Now that affects you because you're going to need to spend more time. You're gonna spend more time and higher cost. Right? If I go to Lovable, everything works based off of credits. Like if I start building here, I could probably only type a prompt in 5 times, maybe just at most. and it's not going to be using the best model. The reason why we need to use the best model is because when you're building an app, you need to be taking things to 100%. You can't have things half-assed, right? And so that's important to note. When you're going to be using these AI website builders, they're going to be using a cheaper model, and they're also going to be using compute, which, more time, more costs, as we talked about. So everything, these two cons here, comes at the expense of ease. And there's a time and place for using these tools. In my instance, in the way I teach people, is leverage their best ability. Even though they do require more time to fix complex issues, I should probably emphasize on this, on the complex issues. And they do accumulate a higher cost. The upside about these tools is that the reason why they're so popular is because it spins things up very, very fast. You can build an app, you can build a website very easily. You can go here, click here, and let me give you a real life example. If I wanted to do something with crypto, right, or something that I may see here, I mean anything. Like if I wanted to build an app or something like that, right? You need to have a starting point. And if you've been coding, you build apps a lot, and you're a builder, you'll notice that at some point you're doing things repetitively. You're building the same landing page. You need to set up a database architecture. You need to create user authentication. You want to set up payments. There's a large gap, or there's a very, let's see, let's explain this. You spend a lot of time doing things you don't need to be spending time on. That's what people consider boilerplate code. Things that are, or it's not boilerplate, I guess, but just things that, yeah, it's not boilerplate, so don't hate on me. But it gives you kind of like this boost into building things. And so what you can do is, let's say you have a web app idea. You can have Lovable or Replit build it out for you. Going back to this example I was giving, let's say we want to build a crypto platform. We could either use this template and simply just remix it, which all it does is it takes something that's already done, and then it spins it off into your own branch, and now you can edit whatever is there. It is simply a head start into getting there faster. Now, if there's none of these templates help you out, you can just use the web-based builder, right? And what I've noticed is that with Lovable or these type of tools, the biggest pro about these tools is that they work extremely hard in the beginning, but the second you start editing things, it goes like this, and then like slowly goes up into what you actually truly want it to be. So leverage the starting hit point right here, where you're like, I need you to build me an app that has user authentication. It's going to be a crypto trading platform. Like, for example, here's a prompt that I would typically use. So if I were to do this myself, I would be like, give me a prompt for building a crypto trading platform. And I would just go here, copy this, go to my Lovable, click paste. Now, I'm not going to have it build, but you understand the point. And it builds your app out. Like, it gives you a head start into building your app out. So that's when I would use Lovable in my workflow, just to craft a simple proof of concept. I wouldn't even consider MVP just a proof of concept, just to bring light into your idea more. And so that's when I would use Lovable or Replit. Now you can stick with it. There's been use cases. Let me find some Lovable to production. There's been use cases of Lovable being like, I see that they have apps out there making like $1 million a year or something, which I believe. But if you want to do this, if you want to build mobile apps specifically, that's kind of another issue. So currently, back to my point I was talking about in the beginning of the video, is that they only work with React-based apps. Like if you asked it to build to a mobile app like React Native, it won't do that. The two main stacks for mobile development, I believe, are Flutter React Native, and for Windows type development, it is Xamarin or Maui. Now, these type of builders, Lovable and Replit, don't actually build to those frameworks. If you don't know what a framework is, it is essentially these tech stacks that help build an app for you. Like, for example, Flutter, what I just mentioned here. Flutter, let me pull this up, build apps for any screen. It is a development kit built on top of, and then go here. So Flutter is a cross development platform that can build to Android or iOS. Like if I needed to build an app for Android, right? If I needed to build an Android app or an iOS app, their respective native languages for this one would be Kotlin, and then for this one would be Swift, right? So this one would be Kotlin, this one would be Swift, and let me just show you those here. So Kotlin, native language for Android development. So you can see here Kotlin and Java. Now, these apps themselves, that singular programming language, is what you would use if you want to build for that app. The reason being is because that's what the devices themselves are coded with. Have you ever, to give you some outside perspective, there's a reason why Macs suck with gaming, and there's a reason why Windows are the primary gaming devices. Macs, I believe, only have and capture around like 5% of the overall computer market. It could be 10%. Yeah, that might be wrong about that. But the reason I say that is because with gaming, they run on two separate engines. Before, the whole switch from Intel to what is it called? Before, when Apple had MacBooks that were run on primarily Intel chips, you could run games such as like CSGO or many of the Steam games. And the reason being is because that was their native language. So iOS, Android is Kotlin, and then for iOS is going to be Swift, the programming language. A little bit of a history lesson. Before Swift, it was Objective-C. And so back in like the early 2010s, probably up to 2016, Objective-C was a primary development language for building apps. Okay. And so the reason, an issue why tools like this can't simply just run a web app in the portal, like if I said, build me an iOS app, the issue is going to be building an iOS app requires a Mac computer. And that is very important to know. If you want to build an app, you need to have a Mac computer because you can't just buy a remote machine, which websites like this require you to have in order to actually build an app. And so, yeah, you need a iOS computer to build a Mac app, if you didn't know that, because you can't just rent out a machine. Now, you can build a Android app through these web builders, and actually a way to actually get around to build a mobile app with these tools is going to be with a framework that they use called Expo. So Expo, the way it works is that there's this layer of abstraction, and it is a package that they use to turn web-based apps into mobile apps. And so it's kind of like their workaround to actually building a mobile app in a desktop environment. But I would have to recommend you that if you're going to build an app, to get to my point is you need to be using tools that are going to be able to run on your machine. So if you truly just want to stick with a web-based environment and run and build a mobile app, the way that these tools are going to go about it is they're going to be still using their React frameworks or whatever prompts they're using on the back end. and just build the app to Expo, which is another development framework. So this goes into my list, mid-expense and less expensive. So both of these tools you can run on your computer. You could be using Android and iOS. If you have a Windows laptop, you can only build Android apps. But if you have an iOS laptop like I do, like a MacBook, you can build iOS apps. Wait, I think I confused that. Windows, you can only build Android. iOS or Mac, you can only build iOS apps. So let's go into here, mid-expensive Cursor, and then down here, less expensive, we're going to Codex, Claude Code, and there might be others, but these are the main ones right now. So Cursor, the reason why it's so expensive is that it is still a step below these two. The way Cursor works is it analyzes all of your code. So if I were to just type some stuff on my computer, right? Boom, 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 boom. It actually indexes your code for you. So on their servers, they actually take everything you have and then the same process as like Lovable and Replit. Like if I were to go to Cursor right now and you go to the settings and then let's go to right here. I mean, just right here, they use your data, your code to actually train their models. So not only that, you can see here that they do something called code-based indexing. So that alone is going to accrue compute costs. So not only do they need to send your code to one server, but they also need to send another request to these models like Codex or whatever model that you choose. And then it needs to send it back to them, and it needs to send you back with the code changes. Now this process, since they are a middleman and they are a for-profit company, they have to make some sort of money, and also that accrues compute costs. So, and the reason why they're cheaper than Lovable or Replit is because they don't, their audience is a lot less than somebody just typing in Lovable or Replit, right? You can literally go on your phone, type in these tools and start building. Whereas Cursor, you need to at least install it onto your computer. So that lessens the audience of people who are typically going to use their product. So Claude Code and Codex, the reason why they're so like cheap in my terms is for $200, you have an unlimited AI coding tool with the best model possible. The con with this is you have, and you're only limited to GPT-5. And for this one, right now, the winner is going to be Opus 4.1. These are very, very expensive models, but, and I will have to tell you right now, I believe, and the reason why they're able to offer you such a good, why they're able to offer you such a good deal on these models is because there is no middleman. You are simply letting you're using tools like Claude Code or Codex. If you don't know what those are, these are just their terminal workflows, production environment. These are their working environments to allow you to use their AI coding models within your code. For example, let me just pull something up. Like for here, this is Codex. And just like in Cursor, where I can just go here, and then let me cancel out of this real quick. And then just select the model, right? I only have one model I can use with Codex, and it is their best model, which is, I can only use GPT models. Whereas with, let's see here, Claude Code, I can only use, oh wait, no, this is still Codex. Oh yeah, that's right. So this is Claude Code. You can see here we can only use the Claude models. And whenever you purchase a subscription to, let's say, their max plan, which is around $200, you are essentially just buying exclusive access to them, right? You don't need to cure the cost that Cursor is giving upon you, which is all the compute cost. The only person you're charging is the source. You can think of this like buying from the source, and that is why it is so much better in terms of cost than using Cursor. The only time I would use Cursor is if there's a point in AI coding models where there's strengths in each model. For example, in my current payments for Codex and Claude Code is $400 a month. The reason being is that I need to use both at max capacity of Opus and GPT-4 High, and using those within Cursor, even at the max plan. Let me Cursor. Let me find their payment plans. All right, let's go ahead and check with the pricing here. So $200 a month on multiple models. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a bit of insight. Like people, you will hit the limit on this ultra model, and so if you want to be using the best AI coding models without hitting the limit, I would just go straight to the source and just like buy the model from. I would use tools like Codex or Claude Code because it is using compute straight from their servers. And that's why it's a lot cheaper. You can use as much as you want, and you don't have to worry about any limits. So that pretty much covers at a high level of the pricing structures, kind of what and how you should expect going into AI coding, why it costs more on the web-based, why it costs a little bit less when you use Cursor, and why it's much beneficial to understand how tools like Codex and Claude Code work at a not only pricing standpoint, but to understand where the strengths and weaknesses lie in each sector. To give you a bit of more insight about what I currently use, I first start off my project with Lovable or Replit, and a couple prompts, probably 1 to 5 prompts, just to get the ball rolling and build the app out initially. If I want to actually build a iOS native app, I skip that entirely and I move into a framework either with Flutter or Swift or React Native, which are the primary development frameworks for building iOS apps. And so if I were to build a iOS app, I would skip this entirely. But if I was building a web app, I would of course move from Lovable. Then I would move on to either Cursor or Codex or Claude Code. Okay, so if I were to build a mobile app right now at this point, I simply just stick with Codex. Okay, if you have any questions about what I should be doing, how my tech stack should work when I'm building apps, or just any question at all, simply join the AI Builders Club that I have, link in the bio. I'm active all the time in there, and if you have anything else that you need, I'll be there to help you guys out. So that is all. Thank you, and I hope this video helped you out just even a little bit.